Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Today is May 21st, 2023 on the ancient moon calendar, 2024 on the ancient sun calendar. All rise and stand and remain standing into perpetuity. This is a sovereign, living, ancient Article 3, Moorish American, Al-Moroccan Universal Court action. And in alignment with the Noahide laws that our ancient foremothers and forefathers first stated the laws, and then they put it on the record that we must have our own courts. That is what we're doing right now. And that is why we start all of our court actions and our congressional assemblies with court action language. We are the sovereign living justices. And in honor of our ancient Aramaic language, Ekoeana, which means I am in Aramaic. Pauline Denise Ritchie, my free chosen sovereign appellation is Light Tajiri Bay. All are in capitis diminutio nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. We are capite et corpus juris legalis, which is our statement that we are the lawful and legal natural head and body for our empire. All Moors are the original indigenous, ancient, sovereign, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American ascendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. Our full faith and trust, our allegiance, our credit, and our energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original indigenous, natural, divine, sovereign, ancient, empire state for Morocco. We're the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government. We are ancient Washington District for Columbia. We are the Universal Moorish American Consulate and the Article 3 Moorish American Consular Court. Today we are exercising the law by our sovereign status, which is the original indigenous, natural, divine, sovereign, ancient, original Article 3, living United States District for Columbia Court, where we are the sovereign fiduciaries, original creditors, executors, trustees, ministers, possessors, and titled beneficiaries for all causes for action at earth. We are peace. We are one nation, one state, one empire, and one God. We hereby recognize ourselves. We hereby recognize ourselves. We hereby recognize ourselves. We say it 3 times. We state it 3 times because it is a spell. And we accept our sovereign ascension. We've issued a universal creditor's bill for possession and custody over all land, all natural resources, all commerce, and all other property. We, the one true God nation, are not at war. There is nothing to war about because the estate is already ours. And we hereby exercise all eternal, ancient, sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time. We have already reached and we are already at the promised land because we are the promised land. It is our responsibility as the promised land, and the promised, all that has been promised to us is now here with us. And it's our responsibility to look around our territories and speak and state life to everything that we see. We are the promised saviors that we've been looking for, waiting for, and preparing for. We have arrived. Now we're going throughout the land and governing, speaking, changing, altering, updating, upgrading, and asserting and putting forth and enforcing, making and enforcing the law. Islam. The meeting is unlocked currently so that all can come in. With that being stated, indeed. So we are going to, let's do just a little bit of housekeeping. Just 1 moment. and then we'll go ahead into our okay. So we're going to go ahead and share the screen so that we can all see. Islam. Islam. Okay. So with that being stated, we just want to give a quick briefing from the last era and from the things that were happening in the last era. The last era, there was some, and when I say last era, there's a timeline that we have established that we know that when the cosmos marks certain things in the timeline, that the energies shift. And when the energies shift, we can sense the change in our energies, and we just had a major shift. So again, the new era is continuously manifesting. So in the last era, there was talk of mRNA and spike proteins and all of that. So we did a little research because we heard that come through again, spike proteins and things of that nature. So we looked up the word spike. And when we looked up the word spike, once again, the word mark came up. So when there were previously attempts to adjust the mitochondrial makeup, that was an attempt to mark, to pierce, to cut, to make unusable, to thwart, to block, to frustrate as a scheme by adding in something that's not naturally there. And then here at number 6, it says to injure. With the spikes on one's shoes, and I found that to be interesting as well, because in the Biblios, it talks about the woman's heel striking the head of the serpent, and that the serpent would bruise the heel of the woman as she stepped on his head with her. And so, be it known that the mitochondrial DNA, and it's not even DNA, it's ONA, it's oxyribonucleic acid. There's not two, that's what deoxyribonucleic acid is when two separate acids that are not related come together. For us, it is oxyribonucleic acid. About in the past where, we give our sons what they need in our wombs, to include their sperm and their semen and things of that nature and their tools. We give them their tools when they're in our stomachs, in our wombs rather. And because we have the authority to issue male parts and male chemicals, that means that we have them originally in our bodies anyway. And thus the term X-Men and womb man and things of that nature. So with that being stated, I just wanted to point out that spike means to mark. You know, you hear people telling stories of a quote unquote mark of the beast and all of that. Be it known that we've already been through that era. The last era was the beast era, where we pretended and enacted taking foreign numbers and foreign names. And when I say foreign, I just mean that the capitalism was foreign. I don't mean that our first and last appellations that our sovereign holy mothers gave us. Those are holy names. That's what we're stating about that. When mother speaks, just because there was previously a commercial mercenary at the end of the table, supposedly, waiting to create some documents and to capitalize what our mother stated, that won't change what our mother stated. When our mothers stated our holy appellations, when my mother called me Pauline Denise Ritchie, that's a holy appellation. It is a noble title, as well as the El Bay Al Ali Day. And so whoever is writing that, they give it their nature. And so when foreigners were writing those things, in their own incompetent way, they were giving whatever they wrote their nature. They weren't changing our nature. Our nature stays the same throughout time. So with that being stated, show the word used for DNA. I will actually ask that you do the research on the word used for DNA. That's some study that you can do. When you look in the dictionary even does, especially dictionaries that are not written by us, use abbreviations such as DNA, but we don't use them. And so our dictionaries won't use DNA. What it will do is spell the word all the way out and then etymologically break the word down and then define the word. So that's how our dictionaries that we write do. So Justice Akil, you could literally write it out yourself and say this is what the dictionary should say. So deoxyribonucleic acid is the terminology that was given in the previous era, but we know that that's animal. That's regarding animals. Animals have DNA. The gods have oxyribonucleic acid. There are not two gods that come together. There's only one. There's only one God, and that's all Moors. All of the original bloodline and birthright. Another briefing, and this briefing is not really a briefing. It's actually where we're going. There are events that are unfolding at the territories that our Article 3 courts are now being beckoned to go ahead and put the justice and have justice to manifest and to issue justice. How do we know that? Well, let's just take a look really quickly, and I'll put this link in the chat for you to see. And this is just one example of how the previous system is stepping aside and saying the Moors have their own court, and even though some Moors don't know that because they're asleep, that does not make it not so. Just because some don't know that we have our own courts doesn't mean that we don't have our own courts. We have our own courts because we are our own courts. And so this story that I put in the chat, it's about a 19-minute video. And there has been an accusation. We are not stating that anyone is guilty of anything. What we are doing is pointing out our responsibility because the others have stepped aside. Okay, just as they were supposed to. Because we stated that all foreign and all subjects, we govern the land. And so with this particular story, it happened, it's being enacted at Dallas Territory. I watched the story on the on this particular channel, and there's been an accusation that someone doing business as a pastor has been exhibiting sexual immorality or illicitness where the youth, the young, are concerned. And as it turns out, the accusation, and again, this is allegedly, we won't state that anyone is guilty until the proper competent jurisdiction has stated one way or the other. Now, why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing it up so that we all know that, number one, these issues, this particular story involves Moors on both sides, and they're all asleep. All of them are asleep, just based on what I've seen in this particular story. How do I know they're all asleep? Well, one of them is doing business as a Christian pastor. And is enacting ruling over sheep who happen to be sleeping Moors. That's one way that we know that he's asleep. And then even the accusers are asleep as well, because they picked up the phone and dialed 911 to call someone that in the story they're calling them authorities. However, once all of this, they told those that were in the office of authorities, they told them their stories, and supposedly those in the office of authorities did an investigation, but they really didn't, because we're the only ones who can do and sanction an investigation, and we've not done so yet. And so they called someone that they thought was authorities, and those who were in the subjects, and I can say that with surety, for sure, the subjects in the office of authorities, police, courts, etc., they enacted doing an investigation, and they said there's nothing we can do, and they are absolutely correct. They told everyone involved there's nothing that they could do, because they know their subjects, and they know that issues between Moors on the land must be justiced, and I'm using that word as a verb now, must be justiced by other Moors, which is a lawful court and a legal court, which is our courts. So all they're doing is stepping aside and saying, we'll just publish it and let the Moors know that there's something going on that requires their attention. So for the Moors at Dallas Territory. Now, We want to state just a few things as the Moors at Dallas Territory begin to look around and govern the events that are happening at your territory. Some of the things that we are to note. All parties involved are Moors except those subjects in the Office of Media, Courts, and Police. That's the first thing I noted. The second thing that we noted is there are more than one accuser, and out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every word be established. When it says let every word be established, it doesn't necessarily mean that the word is established, that it's truth just because 2 or 3 say it. It's truth after due process, coming from anywhere, either side. Due process must take place in order to prove where the truth is. And number 3, the accused has not been charged. And before any charges take place anywhere, there must be a proper investigation. That is due process. And as we begin, listen to me, Morris, because this is where all of the stuff comes in at. As we begin to investigate the things that are happening at our territories, the resources, that's where the resources begin to manifest, because, and we'll point this out in just a moment, according to the Constitution, where when the court is doing things, there can be no encumbrance. If we need to go and investigate something, our transportation is taken care of by the state. Our the supplies and things that we need are taken care of by the state from the public treasury, because it is in the interest of the public that these matters be stated and spoken on and justiced fairly. Now, when we talk about fairness, all of the programming has to be set aside, not really set aside. The programming was put there so that we could look at some things and notice some things. So it's not necessarily the programming, because we can filter the programming so that we'll know. The programming was designed to show us what to do. However, our natural sovereign filter and our natural ability to transmute the information and to make the information uncorrupt is what is necessary. So programming is not bad. It must be made uncorrupt as we continue to move and govern the territories. And so as we do that, all parties involved, we must treat all parties involved as if they were someone that we really love, and something has taken place. And not that we really love, but emotion has to be set aside even. But for those who, if you find it difficult to set the emotion aside, then then love must be put there. For those who may have had programming put on them that in situations like this, there's automatic guilt on the part of one side or the other, that has to be set aside so that justice prevails and so that justice is meted out. And the best way that we can see to do that is either to set the emotion aside so that we can look at the facts. We don't judge crimes, because if you say you judging crimes, you've already decided someone is guilty. And that's why crime is not a thing. We judge facts. And so in our own lives, that must be the case. Not to mention out at the territories, which is where all of this is going. All that we've been doing, all that we've been showing, has been in preparation for where we're going now, where we're going to be moving out into the territories and governing. We had to first, it was necessary that we state that we know how to access the estate, and govern things at events that happen fairly and I hesitate to use the word unbiased because that word is not sufficient for the clarity. That word is vague. It's not sufficient. But even still, if or as we move forward and begin to govern these matters, notification, all of the things that we've been showing and stating and saying, this is how we do things, such as notifying the subjects in the office of that we've taken that case. We do the removal. We don't ask for removal. We do it. We state removal properly, peacefully. And then for those who may have had some trauma in the past era that you cannot get over, and so emotion comes in and wants to pick one side or the other, you have to set that aside or recuse yourself from that matter. But the matter, according to the ancient law, the matter must be spoken of by us. So let me show you just one moment. Yes, yes, I can. Thank you, Empress Shasha. We will do that. Islam. The meeting is unlocked as well. So now, everything, if you're ever unsure about what to do in terms of Moorish, because see, what we're looking at right now is in looking at cases such as these and events such as these, when it's Moors and Moors, sleeping Moors and sleeping Moors. The only way that sleeping Moors will wake up is when justice is properly stated in the events that affect their lives daily. So we're talking now about events that affect the lives of Moors who are asleep and don't know that they're Moors, those events being governed by competent, peaceful Moors. It is most important that we all know, all of us know, especially who are hearing this and those who are here attending this Congressional Assembly, that all that you've been through has been in preparation for what we're doing now. And one of the first cases or causes that we had to do was one where we were directly involved. So we have the authority to govern our own affairs. It must be done. The governing of the affairs must be done where the emotion is taken out, and we look at the law and we say, what does the law say about this? Even, and again, we've had to actually demonstrate what we're stating. Even when we were holding court, demonstrating court in the POW court, because it was a court. It wasn't a cell. It wasn't a jail cell for us. It was a POW court. Even in those courts, we were able to withhold anger and fear and simply state that, okay, those who have done things where they were attempting to exercise some jurisdiction that they didn't have, still 2 weeks in jail and still take the constitutional class. Because even though we were in the cell and there had been jurisdiction had not been properly established, we had to establish it properly during our 10-day POW demonstration, and we were honored to do so. And so, during that time period, as we were pronouncing sentencing on those that were previously doing business as corrections officers and all of that, who became our subjects in that whole demonstration. And we've talked about that demonstration on the public record and shown evidence with the paper, the documentation, and all of that. They got into, just one moment, let me make sure. There's something that was put in the chat that I did not put there. Someone is, again, pretending to be light. There it is, when they're really darkness. So, you know, we have demonstrated that that we can be unbiased even in our own court actions. Okay, and so as we continue to go about being the court and being the law, this is where all of the things that are necessary for us, just one moment, okay, all of the things that are necessary we will have. The ancestors spoke recently and told me in almost audibly, you know, when we hear in our spirit, it is audible to us in many cases, that we will have everything that we need as we continue to move. And it's not need, but everything that is necessary for us to properly, competently govern. We will have all of those things that are necessary for us. So as we give notification to those subjects in the office of, they will respond with the necessary resources that are ours. All that is necessary for justice to prevail will be made available. Now, let me state that if you are leading with your emotions, please do not expect anything to be given until that is put in its proper place. Okay? There is no obligation if there's war energy. There's no obligation if there's war energy. But there is all obligation when there's peace. And we're going to show that here shortly. On the left of the screen is the suggested Noahide laws. On the right is our Noahide laws, the Moorish ancient law. Now, these are, we did write them. If there are any suggestions in terms of the language or the wording in our laws, please feel free to state that here, and I'm going to put the meeting in mute mode so that we can all, those who choose to unmute, and state whatever it is they choose to state regarding what we've placed on the screen, please do so. So we'll go through them. So the Ancient suggested Noahide laws were do establish laws. That was number one. Ours, our 7 Moorish Noahide laws, number one is we are our own courts. So we took what they wrote, what they suggested, what the subject suggested, and we put it in the positive because we operate from positive law instead of negative law. Negative law is don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, and don't do that. That's really what negative law is. Positive ancient sovereign law is we do this, we do that, we do this, we do that. And every now and then we'll put, just for the sake of, we'll put in don't do this and don't do that, but that's not the majority. The majority, 99% of our laws tell us what we can do and what we shall do, what we should do. Or they just state facts. We are our own courts is our statement when it comes to Noahide law number one. We are our own courts. Number two, the suggested law was don't curse God. Well, ours is we are our own God. Number three, the suggested law was do not practice idolatry. Our number three is we have no other gods before us. Number four, suggested Noahide law is do not engage in illicit sexuality. Our number four Noahide law is we engage each other sexually, commercially, and otherwise after our own kind. And whatever that means for you, it will be right for you. Okay? We know that sex is a third dimensional manifestation of commercial activity or the will to engage each other commercially, either commercially or physically or otherwise. Okay, that sex manifested because or as a result of our agreement to engage with each other, which is the same as commerce. And so illicit sexuality and let's just put it in terms of commerce.
With that being said, she charged $50 an hour.
Using some foreign commercial instrument or a bottomry instrument when we're the gods. That is illicit sexuality or immorality. That's really what that is. Because on the foreign bonds that were previously doing business as dollars, which were really Federal Reserve debt notes, there is a statement on there that says, "In God we trust." Well, that was the use of those means that is the trust. And I'm talking about the green things. I'm not talking about ones and zeros in a computer. I'm not talking about cards. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about the green notes that were representing proper commerce when they are really not proper commerce. There's a reason why there is a pyramid on them with the eye separated from the pyramid. That means someone cannot see. Their eyes are separate from what's really being stated. And so when we talk about illicit sexuality, it is engagement at any level, engagement meaning interaction or interfacing with foreign matter. the dead, if you will. Okay, all things living we can engage with at whatever level. However, we must know that as we're engaging, that we have 100% dominion over all matter, all subject matter. That's the law. That's the law. And so let's move to number 5. It says, do not participate in bloodshed. And our number 5 is we honor our divine blood. Honoring the blood will automatically mean that we don't shed.
Apparently you don't have dominion over me because I keep coming back.
In any way. That we don't shed each other's blood. We honor our divine blood. Number 6, do not rob. Number 6, we take all that is ours. And that's everything. You know, I saw something that was apparently going around on social media, and I'm not on social media right now in terms of Facebook. I'm just not there. And I know the ancestors know what they're doing with that. But there's something going around that we received in our WhatsApp where there was some quote unquote crime that was being committed, and someone said,
now, as I love to say, that's where I'm from.
Why is it? And it was about someone taking something. There was a group that went into a jewelry store. There's someone who went into a jewelry store, a group, and they smashed and took and all of that. And they were supposedly the brown-skinned sleeping Moors. And someone asked, why is it that all the quote-unquote crime is done by blacks, or 50% of the crime is done by blacks? That was the question that someone asked. We know we're not black. But the reason, and I'm not making excuses for theft, not by any means. In fact, theft must be judged. That's what we're doing, judging theft, attempted theft of birthright to start with. But why is it that some feel like they could just take things? It's because we were accustomed to taking all that was ours, okay? And that must be put in its proper place. And that's what justice is all about, is putting things back into the proper place so that because we can have everything that we see, all that we survey. That's in the ancient writings, but it must be done a particular way. It must be done by way of our courts, and it must be done in a manner that is just, that does not harm others. Number 7, do not eat flesh from a living animal. And our number 7 is we eat the best of all things with peace and not with cruelty. Okay, to harm something that's living is war, and we don't do that. So, are there any questions, comments, or original? Yes, Empress, intercourse as well. Yes, indeed, and that's why it's called intercourse. Inter means coming together. It's like inner, like the word inner, I-N-N-E-R, but inter means that there's something from outside of you coming together with you. For example, a writ of attachment says that we can attach to something, but not have intercourse with that, not have illicit intercourse with it. Attach to it, but not have illicit intercourse, like what you would do with a best friend. You're attached to your best friend, but there's not illicit intercourse. Okay, and that's even commercially. Yes, Empress Malaya says like inner and enter coming together, indeed. Yes. And the word intercourse, or the conjunction intercourse, can even be spelled with an E, E-N-T-E-R-C-O-U-R-S-E. It can be spelled either way and it will still be correct. And that's what ancient English is about, is it would still be putting the proper emphasis and on the spelling of the word and the meaning of the word. Is there any other additional wisdom from this Congress regarding the Noahide laws, the Moorish Noahide laws? Islam, Empress.
On the comment of stealing, when I hear people say that, it kind of it's unsettling, because when I think of the very suffering that the whole world is going through is due to stealing on a grand scale, and it's so big that most people can't see it, and somehow it seems to be okay on that level. But when I see people who are struggling every day because of that programming and trying to make ends meet, and sometimes they may take things because they're trying to survive, it's just a really strange way to look at life. And I think we have to look at all of it and stand for none of the stealing.
They're struggling because they believe in this bullshit.
Speaking of stealing of time. So anyway, it's just a really strange question, and I think we should look at stealing at all levels, because most of us are suffering from the biggest theft on the planet, and that's the monetary system. I yield.
Cynthia, how can you always sound so panicked about life?
Absolutely
you
true.
sound like life is.
There's that we're doing more than just looking at it. We are actually demonstrating that theft will not continue, and that's what our courts are for. Is let's deal with it. Let's deal with it. That's what our courts are for. So you're absolutely correct, Ember Cynthia, about taking a look at it. We can even do better than just looking at it. We can demonstrate that stealing will not continue by using our courts to do so. And you said something really interesting too about the fiat piece. You used the terminology of making ends meet. I like that you used that term, because we can take a look at that term and see that whatever the means of exchange is an end. Making ends meet. Okay, so what do we want the end to be? We don't want it to be a dead end. We want it to be a living end, because we know living ends don't end. They live on and on and on and on. And so that is why.
Why is Lamont Maurice Butler still in jail? Pauline freed him in a.
That's why our money, the money that we use, is so important. And to continue to demonstrate Moorish sovereign delarium and these other processes, the bid bond, payment bond, performance bond process. And that process, we're going to expand that process in our next meeting, our next Congressional Assembly, to basically just bring it all the way to where, putting it forth the way it should be. The way the way we're going to do that in our next meeting will be the way that in the previous era, it was hidden from us from doing it that way. But we know now that us coming together and unifying is the way that we manifest everything that has to do with us. And so we're gonna unify the documentation.
Cynthia's still panicking because she's ass hurt for her.
We're going to unify the process and make it make sense some more. even still, out of chaos order. So with that being stated, speaking of the bid bond, payment bond, performance bond process, last Congressional Assembly, Empress Angel, I want to thank you for bringing up the piece about the conveyances and things. And then we mentioned something about there being, well, we said that particular process that we talked about last time was for government vehicles. And this particular part is for personal conveyances, okay? Personal conveyances, that process has another step to it. But first we want to talk about offer and acceptance in formation of a contract. Now, they use the term contract. We use the term command. So let's take a quick look at the offer and acceptance piece, because we've talked about offer and acceptance here, and I'll put that link in the chat so that we can all look at it, and it'll be under this video at Light Tajiri Bay channel on YouTube. Offer and acceptance in formation of a contract. Let's take a look at that, because here's what we do know. Everything out there on our land, whether it be conveyances, domiciles, banking, shopping, groceries, whatever it is, the fact that it's sitting on our land says that there's an offer, and they're saying, hey, Moors, do you want this? Is this it? Not want. Is this something that you command, or is this something that you can use? Is this something, you know, would you like to have this, or you like to have that? Is this what you want? Master, is that what you want, master? Is this yours? You know, is this how you want this to be, master? And so those are all offers. The fact that it's sitting there waiting for an exchange to take place states that it's an offer. Retail places, car dealerships, the post office, all of that, those are all offers. Moors, do you want this? Is this not want? Is this something that you command? And so we do the acceptance of it. And the acceptance is done by processes. So as we look at this particular, and again, it must be edited, it must be properly stated. That is so we have the opportunity to restate, rewrite this. And this is the Uniform Commercial Code. So again, it is a form of code. In order for it to be the actual law, we have to restate it. Right now it's in form. Form, the earth was without form and it was void. In other words, if it doesn't have a form, which this does not, then it's void until we state it. Offer and acceptance in formation of contract. The contract is not formed unless we accept it, until we accept it. And then we also get to, it is our responsibility to properly state the terms. No one can state terms for us, we must state them. When you're talking about conveyances and things like that, if they hand you, if you are handed a piece of paper or a stack of papers with terms and conditions, those are only suggestions. They're mere suggestions. You must restate them before accepting them. That means you're going to have to go through them. So it says here, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because it's pretty much straight to the point when you really look at it. Unless otherwise unambiguously indicated. That means it's not vague, it's stated properly. And only we can do that. Unless otherwise unambiguously indicated by the language. That means who's doing the talking, who's doing the speaking, who's doing the stating. Unless otherwise unambiguously indicated by the language or circumstances, an offer to make a contract shall be construed as inviting acceptance in any manner and by any medium reasonable in the circumstances. And we can just pretty much stop right there. We can stop right there. Again, all conveyances, domiciles, stuff at the grocery store, everything is an offer. It's an offer. How we accept that, it's an offer to contract. Well, first and foremost, everyone must be properly identified in order for that to even take place. That's what makes a contract go from being a contract to being a command, is that everyone is in their proper status. All identities are properly stated. An offer to make a contract. To make a contract, that means it's not made yet just because the stuff is there. And just like Empress Shasha said in a previous congressional assembly, that which is real can make something real. That which is not real cannot make anything, cannot create the real. In order for a contract to actually be a real contract, it must be created by the living. An offer to make a contract shall be construed. Just one moment. Shall be construed as inviting acceptance in any manner. Let's focus on in any manner. If it's any manner, that means that we can, that we should. It's actually not that we can, it's actually our responsibility because that thing is on our land. It's our responsibility. We must state how the contract. We must state that. Now, with regard to conveyances and things like that, we still have to state everything about it. And we're there. We've gotten the right to travel piece. We have indemnification where the indemnis facier is concerned. Our courts are ruling on the conveyances. We're discerning the difference between a personal conveyance and a government conveyance, which they're all government anyway. That's why the quote-unquote state can take a conveyance when the state chooses to take a conveyance. And I will say this, Morris, as we continue to do what we're doing, the state can still take conveyances. We just have to know who the state is. The state is all of us. Okay? And so we must state how that happens. It says acceptance is done in any manner. So, if we did it in that last era, then and we didn't write out the contract, then it was according to whoever wrote it out that we agreed to. So now we write out the contract, and then we state that we're the state because it's our estate that the conveyance is on, or that the domicile is on. Okay? And so by any medium is how are you paying? the word medium, whenever we contract, we do it in capitis diminutio media. Minima, media, and maxima. Media is not in all caps because that is how our person, our natural person, is expressed. It's with a capital letter at the beginning and all lowercase letters after that. And then at any time, if we want to capitalize that, we can and put it in all caps. But initially, it's done in capitis diminutio media or minima. Minima and media are the same. It's just that with media, in some instances, they will capitalize the last name and leave the first name in all lowercase except the first letter. And so, again, media, by any medium reasonable in the circumstances, there's even something called a medium in the spirit realm, where there's someone that's attempting to stand between us and the spirit world. Now, we're all mediums, spirit mediums, but we're also spirit maximums and minimums and nolos. In other words, sovereign spirits. So this tells you right here where, we are to use our own everything by the language. By the language. And see, they say circumstances because some people don't know that it's their own ancient English language because see, ancient English contains Latin. It contains words that are in Espanol or Spanish. It contains words that are in other Asiatic languages such as Chinese, Japanese, Korean, etc. So we could go in further and feel free to do the study on this particular uniform commercial code that we have rewritten as universal, except we state it the way we stated on our documentation. So, this one can be quoted. Offer and acceptance to contract. That's how we would state this. Offer and acceptance to contract. Indeed, nobility. Our Congressional Assembly is unlocked. So now that brings us to direct acquisition for conveyances and other personal property. This is direct acquisition for sedans and station wagons for personal property because that is what is stated here. Okay. So again, in our last meeting, Empress Angel brought up some very important points, and we wanted to point out the process from the last Congressional Assembly is for our government things as we continue to do the government work, and then there is a process, and the processes are very similar, except that we get a waiver from GSA or General Services, which is us. We produce and create a waiver, so that and that waiver will state that for this particular conveyance, we're not using General Services because this is a personal.
You're a fucking hypocrite,
property,
Pauline.
Okay? It's personal property. So that is, and again, feel free, Morris, to do the study on this, 908.7101-3, direct acquisition. And this personal property can be a show car. It can be whatever it is that you desire, whatever it is. The process is still the same, except that you quote this right here and state and then include a waiver. So, for example, the and the
can you order spinner wheels on that hood wrap vehicle
that we put in the Mercedes-Benz that we put in our documentation? It's that to me is a government vehicle. Why? Because that's what government uses in different areas. So, for example, whenever there's a presidential motorcade, and again, all of us, this is all of us, I'm saying all of us can do this. Whenever there's a presidential motorcade, there's a particular type of vehicle that does that, depending on the circumstances. There's a different type of motorcade that's used for inauguration versus a parade. And so, all of those things are specified according to our will, and for those who
unbelievable.
For those who don't want to make the distinction, you don't have to make the distinction. Okay, it can all be one for you if you choose to do it that way. What we're doing is putting on the public record the things that we're seeing, that the ancestors are showing us about the difference between the two. So, and again, we think of everything that we do from a public perspective and from a governmental perspective. The personal things, that's personal things. We already have personal things that we're proclaiming and protecting and securing, and so our thought process is where government is concerned, because it's that part of the territories that is expressing at this time. So, in the acquisition of special purpose vehicles for use by Department of Energy and its authorized contractors, the head of the contracting activity may authorize direct purchases. The purchase price for sedans and station wagons shall not exceed any statutory limitation in effect, and that just says it can be whatever we state it is. So again, Moors, as you're going about accessing your estate by way of the processes, keep in mind that you get to state what it's for, how it's going to be used, and all of that, all of the above. So with that being stated, are there any questions or comments or wisdom regarding what we've placed on the public record? Any questions, comments, wisdom?
Islam. So, in the contracts that we have been under this fraudulent system that is falling rapidly,
yes,
has been unilateral contracts where we don't have a say in any of its formulation, whether it is buying a home, a car, or whatever. So these cannot be considered as contracts. They are, well, maybe that's the word, con. They are con artists that has designed them, and the lawyers are the ones who are to be blamed, the legal department that runs the banks, the institutions, the corporations. They always have a legal department. And so they are the ones who have really messed us up. They sit down and they think legalese and how well they can screw people over. But the great news is that the system is rapidly, and I mean rapidly, deteriorating. Right now in Canada, you can hardly get any lawyer to respond. They're just non-responsive. They have basically just run a simple court warrant on them, and they're gone in hiding. I've seen it happen, in many instances where people just question them a few questions, and they're just what you call it, tacit acquiescence. They just run and hide. They have no response, and they, so the whole system of fraud is being fallen apart rapidly. And I mean, I'm talking about like, say, 2 years ago, maybe about 45,000 people would be acquainted with all this year teaching. Now it's like 25 million and counting. It's like the death clock. People are just getting out of the system. It's crumbling. Yeah. It is crumbling, my sister. Yeah. It is crumbling. So your effort, my effort, and all of us' effort combined is bearing fruit like crazy. Yes, because our time has come.
Yes.
I yield.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Justice Willie. You know what? You're absolutely correct. All we had to do was wake up and just come together. That's it. Come together and speak. Just speak.
Yeah.
Keep speaking on the public record. And Justice Willie, I have to give you honor as well for publicly speaking.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key, really. That's the key. Speak publicly.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we needed to do. Not needed.
Currently,
what was necessary. Indeed.
Currently, the IRS, they don't have the capacity to deal with the amount of people who are writing to them to discharge their debts. Yeah. They basically are so behind. It's not funny because people have woken up to the fraud that mortgages, the fraud that these landowners, the whole credit system is a fraud. And so people are now writing to them like crazy, and they just can't respond. When once upon a time they used to take like maybe a few weeks. Now it's taking like months for you to get a response from them because they're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
The system is overwhelmed. So it has to come down. It's coming down fast, as I said, and furious.
Yeah.
I yield.
Indeed. There's someone in the chat pretending to be light tajiri Bay. That I didn't put that link there. You're absolutely correct, Nobility, that, and I'll say this about that as well. If I did not know that we were God, I would be mad at them. I would be mad at those subjects in the office of lawyers and judges and police, but they're not real judges and police and lawyers. We are. We're the real law enforcement. We're the real government. So we really, honestly, have. It's kind of like a default. There's really no one to blame. Why? Because our ancestors knew that they were the law. It is our responsibility to tell our heirs, hey, heirs, you're the law. You must speak. All things concerning you,
and
you
will
speak.
Be
always, at all times, you must speak and never not speak. So, we would love to be mad at, not love to be mad at them, but if we had just cause to be mad at them, at the subjects, we could be mad. But they've always known we were God, and all we had to do was wake up and do what we're doing, and that thing would crumble. So we're the consuls. Consuls supersede lawyers and attorneys just by virtue of status.
And you're correct.
Yeah, status.
I was just going to say, you're correct. You see, let me say this. A scorpion only knows how to sting.
Yes.
It's their nature. Yeah. I'm sure you heard this story. Maybe I've told it before, but I'm going to tell it again. A frog asked a scorpion for an escort on his back to go across the river.
Yeah.
The frog said, but you may sting me. He says, no, I assure you I won't do that to you. You're safe with me. Just take me across the river. That's all I want to do. Go across and you're back.
Yes.
And so the frog take the scorpion on his back, trusting him. And as soon as he reached, he stung the frog. And the frog said, why did you do that to me? And he says, I'm sorry, frog. It's my nature. It's my nature to sting.
Yeah.
People do what's in their nature. My grandmother used to say, you can't expect better out of a hog than a grunt. So
that's it.
That's it. You don't. People are born haters, and no matter what you do, they will hate. Even when they have no reason to hate, they will hate. Some people are born kleptomania. They're thieves. Even when they have no reason, they don't need a thing, but they just in their nature to steal. And so some people are just haters and conniving and fraudsters because it's their nature, like the scorpion. I yield.
Yeah, indeed. And that's why nationality is so important, and that's why naturalization is so important, because you're talking about the nature of a being, the nature of a being. We're born again when we nationalize. Some people may not believe that or want to hear it because of the church from the last era, the church programming, but it is true. Even in our sleep, Moors, we didn't do just any old thing. Even in our sleep, we didn't do any, because our nature was not to just be doing any old nastiness.
Indeed. Islam,
Empress Shasha, and then Noble Phoenix. Empress Shasha.
Islam. Were you frauding when you talked about your app that you're going to expose everybody? Were you frauding?
Just a moment. Go ahead, Empress Shasha. It's our worshipers. They worship.
Is that not the truth? Talk about naturalizing, nationalizing, and it's not our nature to do nasty things and that sort of thing. So you can see, if you do and you fall off the way, in order to come back and be reattached to your nativity, then you must. So that makes complete sense. But I wanted to touch on the idea of being mad at somebody. So I looked up the etymology of mad, an adjective. Disordered in intellect, demented, crazy, insane, out of one's mind. So, of course, we'd be absolutely out of order to be mad at anybody, because what would we be doing? What would we be saying about ourselves? We would have denationalized ourselves.
War energy does that.
Exactly. Cuts you from the heart, and it cuts the way for the angels to be with you.
Yeah.
It's just, boy, I love language.
Yes,
landscape.
It's so beautiful.
But that's it. So I just wanted to share that. Yes, I yield.
Indeed, Empress Shasha. Indeed. Noble Phoenix.
Okay. Thank you, and Islam to everyone. You asked about were there any additional questions or comments. I unfortunately got distracted. I had to step out for a moment. I may have missed it if you covered it already. So we're changing, I guess, the way we're approaching the offer and acceptance. And did you touch on the fact that we are not really buyers per se in a consumer transaction, or are we?
We stated that we are the heirs to all land, all natural resources, and all commerce, which, but I will say this about that. We can be the buyers when we're, again, not being illicit in terms of foreign activity. So among each other, we can be the buyers or the consumer or the customer or all of that. because we're not going to be doing commerce with foreign lower energies. We're going to be doing it with each other.
Okay, so my question really then centers around, I understand that part. I just wanted a little clarity just for the sake of us doing things consistently across the board. But then is a court action necessary for these dealerships? Are we talking still the whole court action and the covering and the liening and all of that for the same transaction on an individual dealership? Or do we, because I noticed that on the properties you've already done, General Motors, leaned them out already, and a few others. So is it necessary to do it again, not on GM per se, because they've already been leaned, they're already Moorish, whatever you want to call it, national products, nationalized companies. But then for the dealership that we're dealing with, so if I'm dealing with my local, I got to go and find who they are and still do the whole lien process. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And here's why. We're governing our vast estate together, but we're also doing it individually. And these processes, we must continue to do them so that generationally the information is passed on. So we have to get used to governing.
Okay, as far as, because this is something I did not ask in previous sessions, but as you know, I'm in the land of flowers, and there's a rather large county here that is very popular tourist-wise. With some little mouse with some ears that people want to come here for that, etc. And I'm thinking of this whole area here. So in order to govern this territory, am I looking at, I guess, taking over as governor of this particular territory, or just at the county level, or the whole state level? I don't know if someone's already claimed that. How do we know that we're not necessarily stepping on, like if someone else has already stepped in, you see what I'm saying, and say, hey, look, I'm governor, I'm over this whole state, I got it. All right.
Okay. So
what are your thoughts?
This is how we know that we're not stepping on any toes. We know that we're not stepping on any toes when we recognize each other as we're all the governor.
Okay.
So it's like we all work at the governor's office together.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, you're the governor, but so is the other Moor who's there at the territory doing things. They're governing too.
Okay. So really then, in order for us to, you know how you have mom and dad in the house, and somebody's got to make the decision. Okay. Mm-hmm. And mom usually runs the household, so dad just kind of says, okay, mom's got this. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming we're going to have to learn to govern in such a fashion where it doesn't appear like mom and dad are arguing and fighting with each other. You see what I'm saying? So there will have to be.
That's what the processes are for. That's what the processes are for.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other question regarding the court actions that we're doing, are these, how do we know what court actions have already been done? Is there a database? Are they being sent back to our Washington, Zion, New Jerusalem, back there where you are? Or are we to just keep our own individual records? Then how do I know what's been done by someone else? If everyone's keeping their own individual records and we don't have a common, you understand where I'm going?
I do.
Registry or some type of database that's showing all that we've done.
But we do have a registry and all of that shows what we've done.
Okay, then please.
It's called the public record.
And where is this public record that we are all using?
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Now, let me say this about because that's a brilliant question. We've had that question asked many times before, and we'll say what we stated. We'll state what we stated then. I could not, and I'll just use myself as an example. I could not go to Grand Sheikh Taj Tariq Bey and say, Grand Sheikh, what company have you spoken to and giving commands to. Because if you can tell me all of that, then I won't have to speak to that company. No, that's not something we would do. What we would do is go ahead and speak to it. I don't have to worry about whether you've liened Microsoft or not, because I'm going to lien them. I didn't have to worry about whether there's been a levy on Seattle or Tacoma or wherever, because I will know that I did it. I put it on the public record and I sent it. Now, some might say, "Oh, that's duplication of efforts." No, it's not. When the Constitution says "we the people," that means we're all speaking with one voice when we do what we're doing. And if only one of us liens and only one of us levies, what happens when that one is on vacation? So we just go ahead and lien and levy. Get a workable system for your documentation so that you will know that it's done. I don't have to ask any of you whether some resource is liened. I just lien it and keep on moving. That makes it so that each and every process in our minds is done from start to finish. Some might think that that's not necessary, but listen, every corporation, when the light company was sending out things, they didn't ask the water company, do you have a lien on that place right there? They didn't say that. They just did their own paperwork and got everything on the public record so that if anything happened, they would have supporting documentation to say, well, no, we see where the contract is. Each one of them, and this is the beauty of what's going on. Each one of them, and I'll just say for us, is beautiful. Each one of us is a vast estate and a source all by ourselves. If there was only one of us on this earth, all of the corporations would be looking at that one, pulling from that one estate, because they all did it anyway. The GMEI utility website did that. We'll tell you that already.
And we're going to get a...
Just one moment. And so all of the companies did that. Whenever they see one of us, they do all of their documents and paperwork and craziness and all of that stuff, the fraud and all of that. And then what do? They each take their piece by doing their paperwork. So each one of us should proclaim and claim our piece, our part and parcel of the vast estate.
Okay.
By doing the paperwork.
And yet Pauline never does any of the stuff that she's telling you to do. Pauline never does any of it.
That is absolutely why we do it that way.
Okay. All right. Clarity has been received. Thank you. All right. Now, the next part of the other question then. When we're dealing with these individual companies, corporations, okay, regardless of the size, the amount of the lien is where I wanted to kind of discuss and maybe gain a little insight.
Hey, Phoenix, have you bought groceries using Delarium?
Let's go ahead and get that out of here. I like to talk over that kind of stuff. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. So the question becomes, the size of the lien, is there any correlation to the size of the company in terms of the size of the lien? Should there be?
Come on, old man Phoenix. Why aren't you buying groceries with the...
You could look up the company's revenues and make the lien the size of the revenue.
And that's what I was thinking, but I just wanted to see if that was the normal way that we have been doing this.
We brought that up a while ago in terms of specificity of the liens. For us, just as a general rule, what we've been doing is leaning at $100 million for each parcel that they were occupying, and that 100 million is also for each more, because each more has an estate that is worth that. There's no specific amount that estate is worth, because our estate grows every day. So we just did a flat tax called $100 million for each parcel that they were previously occupying, and for each more.
All right, and then for some of these companies on our land that have, say, as an example, State Farm, and yet they have 786 companies in the United States under the State Farm umbrella.
Yeah.
All right. So, should I be looking at just doing the corporate veil, and then by extension everything underneath it, and then come up with an amount that's kind of based on all of that, or each individual company?
So that's a great question too. That is the reason why we said, okay, all agents, principals, heirs, assigns, and any derivatives thereof. That means we're tapping that entire resource, whether it be one company or 770,000 subsidiaries.
Got it.
Okay, and that's why we then went to the general flat tax of $100 million for each parcel that they're on. So, for example, there is an overarching corporate headquarters that has 5 restaurants under it. Those 5 restaurants each have 250 locations. That's 250 parcels times 5, and that 5 is times
100 million each.
Right.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah. We decided to simplify it and just go with a flat tax for that very reason, because we thought all of that through, and we can get as specific as we choose to with that. If you want to get specific with it and look at the corporate records and things like that, you can. We just chose to because there's new Moors that'll be coming in who may not be familiar with that accounting practice.
Well,
and we wanted to keep it simple for them.
What I'm thinking, now that you break it down like that, with $100 million per parcel, that gives me a general idea of how I may want to approach this, because that, I'm not going to be looking to find out how many individual parcels or pieces of land that they actually own.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I just don't have the time for that. So I'm going to have to come up with a number that is sufficient for all of it, because regardless of what the amount is, they cannot pay it, because the payment has to be made in lawful. Which they don't have. All they got is fiat and stocks, numbers, and fake fictional stuff is all they got. So really, in a sense, I'm going to say it doesn't matter, but I want it to be correspondent to what they think they owe. So they would think, okay, not as the subject should be, like, oh, well, we're going to pay this, we're going to fight. No, you ain't going to pay nothing, because you ain't got nothing. Nothing.
Even if it was just $1 that they owed, if it's $1 in gold, they can't pay it.
Yes.
Because corporations can't own gold. They can't even handle it.
Yeah.
So that's why they did everything on paper.
Got it. Okay, well, that answers my question. So thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I love your line of thinking, Nobility, because it just brings back to our remembrance why we're doing things the way we're doing it, because we thought we felt overwhelmed when we first started doing this work. We thought, how are we going to do any of this? Look at how, quote unquote, big they are. Yeah. The ancestors said, nope, you got it. Just go.
Well, and I'm kind of back at the beginning again, because my absence for 18 months to a year, 2 years.
Your thinking is so clear, though. Your thinking is so clear,
and that's helpful. But I'm still, I'm still asking that. Why are we doing this way? Not why are we doing it, but why are we doing it this way? And what is the what's the word for? Where's the erudition behind it? So that's what I'm always looking at.
I love that.
I can't. I like even the so-called let me change my language. The 6 main documents, and then the 13 writs, and then the 40 some documents that are out there. I've been going over those for the last 2 weeks, and I haven't gotten through all of them yet because there's so much out there. And,
Yeah.
you know, without having and knowing, say, which specific video it was covered under, as I'm looking at that list, I don't know. And there is not enough time in a week to go through 400 videos.
Don't worry, Phoenix. It's all bullshit.
It's actually, you don't necessarily have to go through all 400 if you don't feel like you want to do that. Well, the information is going to come, and you're going to demonstrate it one way or the other.
Yes.
Because the situations and circumstances are going to present.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
We encourage everyone to go through the videos simply because in each video you're going to hear something that's going to stand out and jog your memory.
Indeed.
You know.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you, Justice Phoenix. I mean, if it's one thing we love is thinkers and thinking and then expressing it. Our ancestors, that's what they want to hear from us. They want to hear that we're thinking things through. Because what did our prophet say? If I can just get you to think, you'll free yourself. It's done already. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. Because this entire Congress is a Congress of thinkers who demonstrate what they're thinking. Islam.
Yes, I was just thinking along those lines, whereby the fact that the estate is so vast, you would never be in a position where there will be lack. If you just focus on that, you don't have to worry about whether I should assess it at 500 million or a billion. It's insignificant because in one's lifetime, they will never, ever be able to exhaust that lien in terms of transactions.
Yeah.
So just focus on vast estate.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's all.
Yeah.
Islam.
Thank you, Justice Azim. You know,
you're welcome.
Here's the thing. Even if we had, because we looked at that specifically. And even if we came up with a number, there is also something called futures in commodities. Futures. So let's say I came up with a number for McDonald's, and we all know that McDonald's made their making their quote unquote money off of real estate, not burgers. Real estate, not burgers. And so, and I'm saying real estate, but we know that they didn't really do anything. We're the real McDonald's too. They're fake. So here's the thing. Even if we came up with, let's say, 62 billion, and we say, okay, we've added up all of the real estate, they're on every corner, just about like the churches and the liquor stores and the gun stores and the pawn shops, on every corner. Okay, we came up with 62 billion for that. They sold 100, quote unquote, 100 million burgers a year for the last 50 years. Okay, let's add that up to be $1 trillion in fake money. So now we got a trillion, 1,100 billion. Now you have to think, okay, well, what are they going to do in the future? Because you got to add that in if you want to get a whole number that just a set number. And you can only base futures on the past, on what's been done in the past, and then futures, you put them on a growth curve. But the problem with growth curves is they don't take into account, and none of them took into account COVID, quote unquote, events, earthwide or not earthwide, worldwide events. They don't put that into, you know, their scope of what they think is going to happen in the future. So, and that's the stock market is pure speculation. They even call themselves speculators. And then they talk about futures, but none of them
It's literally a legalized casino for the corporations, is what it is. It's
Period.
In New York, is what it is.
So we went ahead and just assigned $100 million for each parcel. So for you, Noble Phoenix, if McDonald's has 885 McDonald's, and it's more than that. I think they were last up to about 6,000 or something like that. It might even be more than that, 20,000. Let's say there's 20,000 McDonald's all over. That's $100 million for each one of those. Just for one more. $100 million. And that's before looking in their books and at what they've done, their revenues and things. The $100 million is just for the parcel that they were occupying. So when Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, "Children, you're just plain rich," and we're not children, but we are plain rich, and it's got to be real money, and only we could do that. So with that being stated,
I submitted an address change on your behalf. Let's see whose commands are.
We got a whole bunch of other places just in one company or corporation. Yes, we're trust fund heirs. We are trust fund heirs. Just one moment. Yes, we will open the meeting. Justice Howard, thank you for that. So, with that being stated, that's why it's important for each one of us to do the liens, for each one of us to do the processes, because it's so much. And every time there's an earthquake or a volcano, our estate gets bigger, and that's a jurisdiction that is further extended. Whenever there's a volcano, for example, there were volcanoes at one of the islands, and I can't remember exactly which island it was, but they were showing as the volcano, as the lava shot up into the air, it started creeping towards the ocean, and land was forming. And it was just creeping and creeping and creeping by a certain number of feet per day. Literally, the land and the estate growing right in front of our eyes. That's a jurisdiction. It's ancient because volcanoes are ancient. So all jurisdictions start out as ours. And they remain ours since time immemorial into perpetuity. But at some point, there's going to be some developers who will
time immemorial. You're full of shit, Pauline.
There's going to be some developers who will say, okay, this volcano is no longer active. The last time it erupted was 15 years ago. We want to put some hotels on this, or we want to build resorts, or we want to build a castle, or whatever the case may be. Well, that is a jurisdiction. Okay, some court has to speak about that. Okay.
Kantu left and he said, "Fuck you, Pauline."
Speak about it. Some court has to govern that part of the land.
Islam.
Okay, Islam nobility.
I guess I want to just sort of. I don't like the term piggyback ride, but just connect with Brother Phoenix. As you know, I am the land of flowers, ex-Real, Florida. It's been renamed. Peru, the land of flowers. I'm still doing other work, pretty much by myself, with some assistance with someone else who's also a justice on the land. I think I recall giving you my contact information, Brother Phoenix. So if we can just connect and share some information, we can probably make a great team. howardinvictus@yahoo.com.
Oh, brother.
Sorry, say it a little bit louder.
I think I did respond to your email. Howard Invictus, yes. Yes.
Yes.
Did something. So just hit me up. We can talk tonight even, please.
Yep. Sounds great.
Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you. Peace, Islam.
Yes. Okay. So since the two of you just spoke, I'll further expand on the question of who's governing what territory and do you govern the whole land and all of that. The answer to do you govern the whole land is yes. We all do at all times. For example, and I'll just use myself as an example, or any of you as an example. We're governing Japan. It's just that Justice David L. is over there doing he's over there doing his samurai things with his documentation over there, because we're all one. He's governing over here because we're governing over here. And so our earth is not proprietary to any one of us. It's proprietary to all of us. And I can't say it's not proprietary to any one of us because it is. It's proprietary to each one of us and all of us together, and our heirs and our ancestors. So Justice Howard said that Florida has been renamed as Peru, Land of Flowers. So whenever I'm doing anything with Justice Howard in terms of contracting or anything, then in his contracts that he writes, he's going to write that this is Peru, Land of Flowers. And then in my contracts, if I say that it's Florida, it's still Florida for me because some of the other Moors say that it's Florida or whatever the case may be. Then in my contracts that go out, I'll say Florida. Now, if Justice Howard and I are contracting together, then in honor of what he's saying, just like we do on our documentation, I would say Florida and then put Peru, Land of Flowers in right next to that in either a comma or parentheses or something of that nature. The same way that we do, because we can honor each other like that way, the same way that we do at the top of our documentation. Here on our documentation, because we've been doing this the whole time anyway, we say that this is Northwest A Maxim. Right here, it says it right here, Northwest A Maxim. Well, someone else says that this is
Land of Flowers that think you something.
Northwest Alaska.
Come on.
Not Alaska,
What's your name?
Alaska, rather. Here at the top, it says Northwest Africa, because that is what the land is. Some say, well, this is North America. Depending on where they are on the timeline, we're all on the same timeline. Let's first clarify that. And then where some people say this is Israel and Jerusalem because it is. Because Israel and Jerusalem was here first before it was anywhere else. So was London, England. So was Jamaica and all of that. The land was all one. It still is. The North Gate. Okay, so, and then it says all adjoining islands, Temple of the Moon and Sun, because some said this land is the Temple of the Moon and Sun. We said, okay, we honor that. The true and de jure natural peoples, we're the land too. And then, so, and then this says United States for America. Okay. Moorish National Republic Federal Government. It's still the land. Okay. So, however we state it is what it is, and then we honor each other. And to state that, for example, Noble Howard and I, if we were going to contract, we could then put right up here, if I call it Florida, it would be Florida because that on my map and in my mind, in my heart, that's what it is, because we know that our ancestors actually named it Florida. But they also named it Land of Flowers. They also named it, it used to be, it was a Spanish name as well. Florida is Spanish too, by the way, except we spelled it differently. So we could put Florida, or we could put Peru.
Florence.
Yes, land of flowers. Florida.
It's called the state of Florida,
Florence,
and the governor is Governor Ron DeSantis.
That name right there
I'm just saying,
has
it's
a lot
the state
to do
of Florida.
Now, the fact that a court jester said state of Florida, we already know it's not that. That's the one thing we do know, for sure, along with all the other beautiful information that we know. So then we would say this contract or this agreement is hereby activated at Peru, land of flowers, Florida, and Florence. Florence or Florence, depending on how you spell it. I would spell it, because there's so much water there, I would spell it Florence, like that. Because it's just so beautiful. Anything can be cleansed in those places. So, again, we each govern. And sometimes that will overlap. You know, there are other Moors at Federal Way, and they may or may not know that they're even Moors. But once they wake up and realize that we get to state our land and call it what we want to call it, if they decide that, you know, the words Federal Way give them, you know, their programming it feels uncomfortable, or they see something and they say, I think this should be called this. Then whenever I'm in agreement with them and contracting with them, then we would put Federal Way, and then we would put what they put, or we would put whatever it is they say it is, and then Federal Way. Either way, you know. Because, again, we all govern. And then when nations come together, it works the same way. Some places would never, some other nations would never call this America, because they keep thinking Amerigo Vespucci, when that's really not where the name came from. The name America is a derivative of Al-Moroccan. Over the years, the different languages, the pronunciation and the emphasis is placed in different places. So that's where the difference comes in at. So with that being stated, again, we just take the time to honor one another, and whatever we say, ultimately it's always going to be what we say and not what any foreign matter says. The foreigners, everything that we've ever seen that they've ever done has been suggestions on how we govern. When I did the POW demonstration and the subjects came up and one grabbed this arm and one grabbed this arm, you know, and they did what enacted being government, all they were doing was suggesting you can do it this way if you want to do it this way. This is how, you know, however you choose to do it, you can do it. They were just making suggestions on how to carry, you know, how to deal with this, how to deal with that, you know. So I'm not even mad at them. They're subjects. They were supposed to show me how it was done. I don't need them to show me anything else, because we got it. We got you. That's what YouTube is for us to just look and be like, okay, that's how you do that. And then, you know, man knows not by being told a lot of times, you know. Now I'm like, okay, let's see the abundance and let's continue to do that part. So with that being stated, are there any other questions, comments, wisdom, etc., before we move into one final briefing? One final briefing. Okay. Any questions, comments, wisdom? Okay. Our final briefing for today regarding the law is that we're going to, I have rewritten this whole, now we know that the 14th Amendment was not lawful. It wasn't right. It had nothing to do with us. But we have to really think and know that none of what was stated or suggested by the subjects was the law. It was suggestions, but it's not the law. Okay? So our last Congressional Assembly, and I'll put this link here in the chat so that you can, again, take a look at this. This is 14th Amendment, Section 4, regarding the debt. We talked about this briefly last time, but what we did do is restate this section. Not originally, because they're not original. Okay, I can say originally they copied it and hypothecated and quote-unquote enacted adopting it as this. The validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. But neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claim for the loss or emancipation of any slave, but all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. So we know that this is not our living United States, because our living United States has no debt. So what we did was we stated that we would restate this section, and this is how we were inspired to restate this section. Any feedback, any wisdom from this Congress is much appreciated, as always, with all that we state. So we said the validity of the public credit for this United States, or for the United States, because really there's only one United States, and that's the living one, authorized by law, including credits incurred for payment for pensions and bounties for services and public works, in expressing resurrection, peace, truth, freedom, justice, abundance, and prosperity, shall not be questioned. This United States and all her living trusted states shall accept, utilize, and capitalize all credit at will in aid of uprising in favor and unity with the United States, or any claim for credit and freedom for all natural persons, and all such credits, claims, trusts, and acceptances shall be legal and withstanding. And I actually want to update this to our hereby legal, not ancient English, are hereby legal and withstanding. And that is ancient English, actually. Are there any questions, suggestions, wisdom in terms of this particular article, Section 4, regarding the 14th Amendment? Islam.
In my words, this is Empress Aisha, Michigan Republic.
Islam, Empress.
Could that word legal be changed to lawful?
Yes, it can. Lawful can be added. The reason we put legal is because we've done all the lawful processes of proclaiming our nationality by our affidavits. Here, and we will put lawful there, Empress.
Thank you.
We're putting special or particular emphasis on the legal processes because it is necessary for the legal processes in terms of manifesting using a natural person. Natural persons get everything that they get by legal processes. Living sovereigns get everything that they get by lawful processes. So you're absolutely correct that lawful should be there as well.
Thank you.
Islam, thank you, Empress, for your wisdom. It's much appreciated.
Islam,
Empress.
Just on that last sentence there, let's see, all natural persons and all such credits, claims, trusts, and acceptances are hereby. So I think we need to take out the B, no true? Hereby lawful,
correct,
legal,
yeah.
and standing.
Yes.
There you go. All right.
Thank you, Empress. Appreciate it. Much appreciated. Thank you for your wisdom and your keen eye. Islam, nobility.
I thoroughly love the very beginning of that, since it's a total reversal of what they were saying about the public debt and the fact that we're talking about our public credit. And so I just have to just say I really love the way that is expressed right now as it stands. I'm sure that we might find reason or cause to maybe enhance and make it even better down in the future, but right now I like it exactly as it is.
Islam. Thank you, nobility. You used the word reversal, and something that the ancestors have been showing me, because I was wondering about this. It just kept coming up. Like, why do they keep saying that? When the subjects who are Christians, when they start talking about repent, because everything that the subjects say is a suggested something for us to look at and say and make it uncorrupt. Our quote-unquote repentance is actually, whenever you see the word repent, it actually should state for the sovereigns reversal. When subjects repent, they look at what they've done, and they say, "Oh, I should not have done that. I'm sorry. I'm gonna do better." For us, it's reversion of a state. That's what repentance is. Because see, we, the gods, have nothing to repent for, but we do have an entire estate that this reversion, or to turn that around, yes, because reversion and of estate and repentance for subjects is the same thing. It means to turn around, or to turn away, or to turn to. Repentance for subjects is to turn away from their sin. For us, reversion is to turn to our vast estate and demonstrate and express it. Islam, yes, Empress Malaya in the chat, it means to turn around. Exactly, indeed.
Islam.
Islam, nobility.
Okay, so now the question, I know that this is what the 14th Amendment or part of it says, but what are we intending with this, and how are we intending to revise the whole thing, not just that one part of it?
Yeah. So
where's the rest
throughout, I'm sorry, go ahead, nobility.
No, what I'm asking is like, okay, so that's great, but where does this fit in with what else is already out there? What does the whole picture look like with this added in, is my question.
Okay. That's a great question, and thank you for asking that question. So what the 14th Amendment really was for, let's turn it back on put it in its proper place. That's why I love the question. The 14th Amendment was actually a way for us to govern our all caps, because this is a servant. Either our all caps or the in capitis diminutio minima, which has the first letter capitalized and the other letters lowercase. It was a way for the sovereign, in all lowercase letters, to govern the corporation or the people, the persons rather. The people, the persons. It was a way for the sovereigns to govern. That's what the 14th Amendment was for. Except that there were people who accepted the identity and thought that whenever they were talking to a corporation that they were talking to the people, and they weren't. We were not. We were never. We as the authorities were never enslaving people. We had servants and have servants. Pauline Denise Ritchie, in all capital letters, is my servant and my slave if I call her that.
Islam.
And she will do whatever I say. So the 14th Amendment is talking about that, because we know that the Constitution is a commercial document. We did not need commerce as sovereigns, because we just would go and pick and pull and take and do whatever. As sovereigns, we don't need commerce. Everything already belongs to us. But because we've decided to manifest in this dimension has war and peace. In other words, confusion and clarity, because that's what war and peace is. War is confusion, peace is clarity. So that's what the constitutions and these writings are all for, is clarity. Islam, nobility.
Okay. It's so interesting the way you just described that as that being your servant. Okay.
Yes.
Because I came to a deeper appreciation just in the last, 24 months or so as to that entity, the all caps name. And we were always trying to run away from it and trying to expose it or trying to do this with it and do that with it, never realizing, as you just suggested or just stated, that's your servant.
Yeah.
It's your entity, your utility to interface in commerce with. But you were still always the sovereign.
Yeah.
Okay? And it literally, people have to look at it differently because, and I've been sharing this a lot lately, because literally it is an organization, a state agency, and you are the executor to that agency. You are the head honcho in charge of that agency.
And no one else is.
And no one else can be, because it is titled in your name based off of your essential substantial substance, okay, which the fiction has no substance. It is the shadow. But the body is real, that creates the shadow when the light hits it.
Yes.
Okay? And creates a shadow around it. So it was always your shadow, never the substance. But we were always looking at it differently and trying to capture and control. You can't control, you can't own your shadow. It's there, but it does only what you do.
Yes.
Because you're the real, it's the shadow.
Yes.
So when you're explaining it this way, it just shows me the connectivity, the synchronicity is the word that I'm looking for, of what I've been sharing in terms of looking at that name and so forth as it really, really was. But we were deceived into believing, like you said, we were trying to be it and claiming it in our sleep. And that was always the problem. So once we woke up, and we stand up and say, you know what? I'm the head honcho in charge. I'm the executive to that agency. I make the rules and policies. By what right and by what authority do you have trying to charge this vessel? And what is the contract that I have with you? Blah, blah, blah. None. Okay, you got to go. Bye.
See, they were offering services.
No, we didn't. We were asleep. So this is all coming together so well. I literally, I don't know what sleep is anymore because I'm just up all night, all the time. And I sleep for 2 or 3 hours at a time, and I wake up and I'm thinking about this, all of this stuff all day, all the time. And I just take naps, mini naps all day.
Yeah. Yeah. That was me for the first 4 years, and now I'm at year 6. Just in the last 2 years, I've actually been able to sleep at, when sleep is called for. I can't even say sleep at night because I don't really sleep at night. I'm up with the moon.
Yeah.
In the peace of the moon. It's very peaceful.
Yes, about the same. Islam.
Yeah, Islam. And I will say this too. Now I'm so glad you brought that up, because our responsibility to each other, and this is where we're going also. Let's go back to the case that we talked about, or the cause for action. Cause for action. This case where, there is an accusation that a sleeping Moor has done something, and the court needs to speak. The Article 3 court at Dallas needs to speak. So Moors who are at Dallas, this is for you. We together, all of us together, it is up to us to unify. And let's say, for example, Noble Phoenix has a business or a cause that he wants to put forth. Well, together, when we come together and say, Noble Phoenix, I see that you have a business and you're doing things, or you have a cause and you want some support. You can use my all caps. Go ahead and put me down, put me on the list for that, to support that. Then now we're saying we're in contract together, and you can use my all caps to support your purpose, whatever your purpose is that you're doing. We were never supposed to do that with foreigners who would use that against us. That's why they say everything you say can and be used against you, because you've agreed that thing, that their all caps that they created is you, when that's not you. It's only when we agree with each other like kind. Okay? Now, when they say can and will be used against you, they're saying, is it your will that name is yours? Okay, then that will be used against you because you didn't create it. That's why they say it that way. Can is the consent. Will is, if it's your will, sovereign Lord, then we'll throw you in jail because you've accepted what we created, when that kind of thing. But see, we know that among the heirs, everyone is honorable from day one until they're innocent until proven guilty. That's why our own courts, ancient law says we must have our own courts, because we're agreeing to let others use our all caps, to capitalize on of like kind. You don't let foreigners do that, because they'll do foreign things. They'll call you a foreign thing. See, the foreign corpses who would take an all caps and use it for foreign dead things, that's called a curse. And you're agreeing to be cursed when you let them use something that is only made for the living. So what do? They have to create a dead one. They can't even use the living one. They have to create a dead one. And that's why we cannot represent the dead, because the dead already has a representative. It's another dead thing. It's another dead thing. I can't go down to the cemetery and be like, okay, I want one of these bodies to go shopping. So I'll pick that one. So now, dead thing, get up and go shopping. Only a zombie will get up and go shopping. Because, see, the dead will be raised when we say, all rise and stand. Because we're that powerful. But it'll just be a zombie walking around doing dead things. It can't comprehend that which is living. Our thoughts are not the thoughts of the dead. Neither are our ways their ways. For as the heavens are as high above the earth, so are our thoughts than the thoughts of the dead. That's biblical. So, you know, it was our spirit and our nature in all that we create. Whether it be letters, numbers, and then where the Social Security number is attached to this, when we restated and terminated all corporate contracts, this sequence of numbers as stated by the dead no longer apply. So what happens then when an offer is presented? When the offer is presented, we must speak life to the offer so that we can accept it. That's what the processes are all about. That's what restating the documents are all about. So Justice Willie asked a question or made some gave us some of his wisdom earlier regarding he mentioned mortgages and you know, contracts where houses are concerned, and the things, you know, all of those are dead. They need to be restated, and we can the house is ours. It's already ours. Everything is already ours. We just have to restate it and use the proper process, living processes, not dead processes. Starting with these instruments. If you agree to use an instrument that's spoken by the dead, that's a bottomry instrument. Bottomry because it comes from below. That's what bottomry instruments are. Instruments that come from below. So our grand sheet talks about bottomry instruments and how they, you know, no one's buying bottomry instruments. No one wants anything to do with them. Correct. None of us want anything to do with them. So we terminated all corporate contracts. We liened and levied and did all of that. Levies say the benefit is ours. Not the thing, not the bottomry instrument, but the benefit. We levy for the benefit. A levy means to tax or take it. That's what a levy is the taking, which is, according to the Constitution, the takings clause. That's the Fifth Amendment, takings clause. And so when we're taking things that are either public or private, the sovereign must do either one of those. You have to be sovereign to even take something. And it must be the sovereign estate or state. So when we're doing things, we do it as the state because we are the state. And in our next Congressional Assembly, we'll have a process that looks very similar to ones we've shown in the past, where the state is speaking. It's not like Tajiri Bay. It's not Pauline Denise Ritchie. It's not, you know, Empress Angel or Justice Noble Phoenix, or it's not any one. It's all of us speaking together to claim. We are the state, and we're going to show that process at our next Congressional Assembly. Just one moment. Are there any questions, comments, wisdom of any from this great Congress?
Islam.
Islam, Empress.
Couple things that really just popped into my head. For some reason today, there's been, I don't remember, was it Empress Cynthia who mentioned the term making ends meet?
Yes.
And I saw, do you know the symbol, the Ouroboros, which is the serpent that is devouring its own tail, or its circles, and you know, for some reason that just popped into my mind, and the serpent is one of those symbols, you know, that's given the bad rap.
Yes.
It's evil, but it's also wisdom.
Yes.
So when we make ends meet, and that wisdom is devouring the negative, as it were, and it's also a serpent sheds its skin and comes back in. But for some reason, the serpent, and then the statement you made, which was part of the Miranda rights, I think that's what that's called.
Yes.
They can and will be used against you.
Yes.
Again, when you broke it down and said about the will, and the will, even though it comes across in that situation as something else, but it's the individual's, the living person's will that is going to be used against them.
Yes.
And you know, that breakdown was just clear again, and popped up a serpent in my mind, because the word can in the ancient Mayan language means the serpent.
Yes.
And then when you look at that whole thing, it also means yellow. Yellow has been used sometimes as cowardly, or the, you know,
yellow belly.
Yes.
That's a coward.
That's a coward. And it's so interesting that yes, the word for serpent, which is wisdom, as well as its shadow maybe, or the opposite is evil. And then there's the yellow, which really and truly, the coward is the one making that statement to the living man or woman who doesn't recognize, and I'm speaking for myself maybe, but, you know, as a general, that will is actually your will. So the word in itself isn't just a word as it comes across. It's an actual action. It's it's the sovereign. It's the entity. It's the it's the utility. But so that just all of those, and so that serpent has been bouncing on my head, the forefront today, from this Congressional Assembly. The other question I have is, as you state, we can use that utility to support a cause, and you're also talking about we, being the law, must handle everything, govern what's in your territory. It came to my notice yesterday, or a few days ago, that a young Moor who's asleep, but has been and is still locked up in the police station, and has been since March, the end of March. And so I had asked the question, brought it up yesterday in a meeting, another assembly really, but that in order to assist or be the law, enforce the law, what ought to be the process? I know you brought up the bond couple of assemblies ago. Now, this young man I know is not nationalized. So, do I get him nationalized first in order to assist him, or can I mean, I think he ought to be nationalized because he's in their jurisdiction, because even though they're fraudulent, because he's consenting to be in their jurisdiction by virtue of not being nationalized.
And ignorance of the law is no excuse.
And
so he must
be
nationalized.
So I must.
Let me give you a quick way to do that.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for.
Because we've done it before ourselves. How do you communicate with him? Is it by phone? By
Well,
writing?
I haven't. I just heard and about it, and he, in fact, was in the station when they picked me up that time, and he's been there ever since. So I just found out a couple days ago.
So let's see. So the quickest way to do that, if you don't speak to him on the phone or anything, would be to send or hand documents over for him to nationalize.
So
just something that he can sign. And Empress, if there is if for some reason he can't sign it, but you can get it to him, put a statement in there, the court action language, and a statement that says, "I hereby state that I am a living, breathing, sovereign, ancient Moorish American Al-Moroccan." Okay. Because by the words that come out of his mouth, that's going to bring the energies and the aid that he needs. Okay. It has to come from him in order because just like with us, we've seen Moors taken, and we would speak on their behalf, but they would still be in there. They must be competent to know past a certain point, not just who they are, but wherever they are on the timeline, they have to, for example, if we know that we're all consuls and so on and so forth, then they have to know court action language. It has to be done. Right. They have to know there's some things, And so for the new Moors, the ones who don't know that they're Moors, they can, the same way, remember, Empress, the same way, and Moors, hear me when I say this, the same way that a preacher would look at the TV screen and say, all you have to do in order to be saved is to say what I'm about to tell you to say. And they would state a quote-unquote prayer, and they would say, if you bowed your head and said that, then you're saved. Okay, same thing with nationality. Just give them a statement to say. Okay. Give them a statement to say, because remember, and we've always stated this, nationality is first done in our hearts. Right. Then it manifests on paper. Then we do the processes. Right. So if he would just state the statement, and Empress, even if you don't talk to him or you don't know who he is, you can still send him energy. Send the statement in the spirit realm. Okay. I know him. I mean, I do know him, but it's spiritual first. Yes. And then when he sees the writing, it will connect in the spirit realm so that it then manifests, so that his truth center can hear. Now, the thing with, I'm not sure, I'm going to tell you how literate he is. So I would have to be stated. I can go up there and see if I can see him. But then I would say documents first. Okay. Yeah. If you can get the documents first. Okay. And some might say, well, that's not going to get them out quick enough. Hold it. The ancestors know what they're doing, because even when, I'll just use my experiences as an example, even while I was in the POW camps doing court actions and things like that, there was things that the ancestors were showing us. Those really should be called concentration camps on our land. Yeah. They should be called concentration camps. Anyone who's been in there, will tell you that unless they were unless they were emotionally involved in all of that. But when you get quiet in your spirit and you start looking around and the ancestors start speaking, the spirit speaks to you through your spirit, you will know that it's a concentration camp, and there's some things that you can notice and see, and things will become clear to you. And even once you get out of there, when you think back on that situation, you'll start remembering things that happened that you had overlooked previously that happened, so that it speaks to you. It will speak to you.
Yeah.
Empress, you had a demonstration where, they called themselves detaining you. You can remember some things that happened that you might have thought you forgot about it.
Absolutely.
But there are awarenesses, like the way someone looked when you said something.
Yep.
Or something that you saw on a piece of paper, and you only glanced at that piece of paper, but you saw it.
Yep.
And it's all making things clear. It's adding clarity. The Biblio says that the Spirit will bring all things to our remembrance. I remember things about my POW demonstrations that I thought I had forgotten, but when it comes time for the Spirit to speak, the Spirit will say, this is why we said to do this. This is why we said do that.
Yeah, I can absolutely relate to that with that situation and other situations, stressful, where things jumped out at me and I could see them and tuck them away because I knew I couldn't, it wasn't for dealing with them, but later outside of the whole, it's like a download of explanation and understanding, and so I can absolutely relate. So now to just clarify, so the nationality documents, that statement, and then I would do the bond, like the document that you used the other day. Release. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You can send all of that together, even.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do what I am the law, and I will enforce it. I will do
indeed.
It.
Yes, indeed.
So,
yes, indeed.
Islam,
thank you.
Islam nobility.
Okay, so
thank you, Empress Shasha.
Yeah, we got a little sidetracked, and that's good because we needed that. But again, I wanted to hear where this part of the 14th Amendment, what we're doing with that, what it fits into.
It fits into how we govern, and we stated this, it fits into how we govern our all caps and any all caps on the land. Because as people continue to come to our courts, for example, the Moors that are at Dallas, when they're doing things with regard to the all caps and the in capitis diminutio minima of the accuser and the accused, that's where the 14th Amendment comes in at, is if there are Moors who are asleep and they don't know that they're the law, then the 14th Amendment will apply, but it's the way we state it, because this is our state. So the 14th Amendment does not enslave, it actually it serves. So that's what we're doing with this right here, is that as we continue to restate the Constitution, because contrary to popular belief, the Constitution is a corrupt document until we restate it for creditors. It's a debt-ridden document. It even mentions debt, 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 and more debt. And so it needed to be restated. That's what this is. That's what we're doing. We're making it so that as people come to our courts, they get the best outcome in terms of justice that they can.
That's a very valid point you made. It speaks of debt, 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 because it not only does it literally do that, but they were all in debt, and they were all debtors when they came here.
Yes.
And because they were indebted to who? The Moroccan emperor.
Yes.
They were on our lands, the empire.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yep. We are restating so that because we're going to be governing other Moors, and they don't know they're Moors, they're asleep. It's going to be similar to when we would go into fake courts. We didn't know that was a 33rd degree actor up there. We didn't know that. We thought it was a judge who was going to give justice. The sleeping Moors coming in, and this is the beauty of what we're doing. The sleeping Moors whose causes we will be judging, because judgment begins at home. Foreigners should not be judging other Moors. They don't have the authority. And we can say that all day, that they don't have the authority, but it's only when we demonstrate that they don't have the authority by going ahead and judging that they know for sure that they don't. Starting with our own issues, anything that we think is ours anyway. So as we're doing what we're doing, the beauty of this is going to be that we actually can state across the bench. Are you familiar with your nationality? Do you know that the Constitution only applies to those who are living people? Or we're gonna go ahead and send you to jail, and in jail you're gonna have a constitutional law class to take, so that you know. And in those law classes, we can be injecting and interjecting nationality in there, truth in there. And as we continue to do what we're doing, we're going to be continue. All we've been doing through putting so many videos on the public record is restating the Constitution so that the constitutional rights can be invoked properly from a creditor perspective and not a debtor perspective. There were some, Moors who we honor them for holding up the Constitution and saying, you all have to obey the Constitution. But they did not know that they had to restate the Constitution in order for it to apply to them and for it to work for them. So in the interim, anything they said can and was used against them. And we're not having that anymore. We're going ahead and rewriting, restating, and putting it on the altar, putting the words on the altar so that those words are cleansed and uncorrupted. So what we're doing when we restate is also spiritual. We are putting on the altar the words so that all can be saved, not just Moors, all. But I'll tell you this, our focus is on the Moors because the subjects already know what to do. They know what to do because we told them what to do before we went to sleep. They know. And what have they been doing while we were asleep, enacting being asleep? Quoting the Constitution that they altered and putting it in commercial Christian format.
Islam,
Empress.
I sent you a document regarding the 14th Amendment.
Yes.
Did you see it? From the
yes,
90th
I saw
Congress?
the link.
Okay.
Did you want me to put that on the screen? Because I can put it on the screen if you want me to, Empress.
Yeah, it just shows that it was never ratified, and they admitted it in 1967.
Okay, let's put that on the screen.
Okay.
Listen, nothing that they did was properly ratified. That's why we have to restate everything. And people trying to use that, you won't be able to use it because it's not valid law. It's not. Well, there it is right there. And that's why they call them acts. And I'll tell you this, They call all of their stuff acts and statutes and codes. And even in the Biblios, they didn't call it the law for the apostles or the law of the apostles. They called it the acts of the apostles, because that ain't real either until we say it is. And we state that our restatement of everything is truth. And our restatement is identical to that of our ancestors at their greatness. They're the greatest ever. So there's the link. Oh, thank you, Empress Rosetta. Here it is right here. And look, it says proceedings and debates of the 90th Congress First Session. This does not say law. Proceedings and debates. It says the 14th Amendment, equal protection law or tool of usurpation. And they're just having discussions about it. And I apologize that this is a little bit tiny. That's my fault. For my okay. So again, the 14th Amendment was not valid until we state what should be on there. Okay? And this is why it was none of that was ratified, because it wasn't ratified by us. Now we're ratifying and doing what should be done. Now, right here it says, if mankind is ever to abolish war from the face of the earth, we first must break down the barriers of mistrust. That's financial. That's a financial statement. They're talking about trust law. And suspicion among the peoples of the world. There's no better way to accomplish this than through just such programs as this one conducted by the American Council of Young Political Leaders. So, again, they're stating that this is written by mankind. Not by man, but by mankind. Okay? So whenever you hear mankind saying things about the living man, all they're doing is saying, Moors, this is what you should be saying. Because they're not man, they're mankind, and we're not mad at that. We created them, we love them. And then in the Declaration of Independence, it says that God, and I'm paraphrasing, about in the preamble, it talks about God hearing the suggestions of mankind. Just one moment. Let me pull one other thing, one last something. Here it is right here. This is a transcript of the Declaration of Independence. This is a transcript on archives.gov. Look here at what it says. It says, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind. The opinions, not the laws, because they can't make laws. Only God can make laws. Who is God? The Moors. The original indigenous ancient bloodline that's been on the earth since before the earth was even created. So mankind knows who they are. We don't have to worry about them. Those are our subjects. We love them. They know who they are. But They're acting for those who don't know they're acting for Moors who don't know who they are. And they're saying, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. If we have to act it out, we'll just act it out until you do it. And if you don't do it, we'll do something unfair that you deem unfair because we know there's nobility in you. So we'll just do something dirty that will make you think, oh, wait a minute, I'm not a part of them. I'm actually to stand and be myself. So everybody that's going, let's all come together and do this, all they're doing is that's mankind saying, hey, ancient heirs, this is how you unify with everybody. Everybody being other Moorish nations. Are we leaving them out? No, we're not leaving them out. They're our subjects. Just like they were so anxious and so proud to be subjects of the queen, quote unquote. That was them, again, pointing and saying, Moors, this is who they are. And who is the crown? Who is the crown? All Moors are the crown. So that's just a little energy in that direction as well. With that being stated, are there any other questions, comments, wisdom from this great Congress? I do want to say that for the heirs, Justice Kansu, Empress Rosetta, and all Moors who are experiencing humanness by way of the presentments that life is bringing, we're with you. We're with you. We're with you. We will never leave you nor forsake you. We're with you. And that goes for all Moors. All Moors. We say that to each other. We will never leave each other nor forsake each other. Ever. We've been here since time immemorial. We're going to be here. Long beyond perpetuity. And that's why governing this vast estate is so important. So that when things, when events take place in our nation, we know what to do, so that we don't have to call third-party interlopers to come in. I will say, Empress Rosetta, that I was just so glad to see our customs be honored in the event that you recently demonstrated. It was a beautiful demonstration. Beautiful. Justice Kansu, on the call, in Congress still, from the hospital bed.
I'm telling you.
Do we have any excuses? No. That's how governing is done. We govern.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this, the subjects gave us a great example with this whole quote-unquote COVID thing.
Nowhere nearly it.
Everybody still ate. Everybody still got what they, what was necessary. But they still kept the clamp down, just showing the Moors how to govern the whole earth, the whole world, all at once. That means we can do it all at once, together. Together. I have nothing further today for this amazing and competent judicial body. And if there's nothing further, we will adjourn and meet again on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Islam.
Islam. Grand rising.
Grand rising. Get better. Noble concept. Get better.
Yes. Indeed.
Islamic.
Islam.
Islamic.
Love.
Gratitude, peace and love.
Islam. Thank you, Empress.
Islam.
Grand rising, much love, Islam.
Grand rising, indeed.
Gratitude.
Islam, thank you, Empress. We will disconnect, not disconnect. We will pause this meeting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Islam.